Welcome back, my Jedi friends, and today I bring you the ultimate drug guide. The ultimate drug guide. I used to be a drug dealer. There you go. So I'm an authority on all of these things. So let's take this seriously. Let's take it seriously, folks. So when people say no to drugs and drugs are bad and stop the drugs, well, I find it very interesting from somebody that worked on the front line of the healthcare system. As somebody who was, when people asked me what I used to do, I used to tell them I was a qualified drug dealer because most nurses are. What you're doing, you're paid to distribute drugs because there's a pill for every ill, folks. So I find it fascinating that when people talk about drugs, we should stop drugs, things like marijuana and cocaine, which are illegal. They're illegal. Heroin, it's illegal, except it's not, folks. Because if you've ever had a dose of morphine, then that's pure heroin. So let's start making distinctions. And these two worlds get lost between each other. Different drugs, a pill for every ill, folks. The health system is based on a system where a GP gets 15 minutes to sort out your problems. So uh, they're never going to do that, folks. Because let's just assume that there's a psychological base for it. They can't sort that out in 15 minutes. What they can do is give you a pill. Now, we've got a couple of contributing factors to this. A person in a white coat who's called themselves a doctor, it's been proven, and this is called the placebo effect, that if they hand you a Smartie and tell you that it'll be good for you, that because you believe that they know what they're talking about, there's a high probability that it will. There's at least a 20% chance this Smartie will get you exactly the same physiological effects as any drug because the person believes it. They believe that this pill is going to cure me. And the placebo effect is something that has been studied for a long time. There's a lot of research, and I've looked into a lot of research on the placebo effect. So, people in authority that hand you drugs are far like a lot of it is down to the fact that you believe them, which tells you that most healing or a lot of healing happens in here, folks, happens in here. These are facts. The placebo effect is very well established. And we hear a lot on the news, don't we? Say no to drugs. Now, if you're of my generation growing up in the UK in the 70s and 80s, and you'll have seen Grange Hill, and you will have heard, say no to drugs, just say no. Zamo got hooked on drugs, say no. Say no to drugs, folks. That was the message. Yet you go to the health service and you are legally required to say yes to drugs. Paradox, folks. It's a paradox. So I want to talk about the drugs that are legal today. Let's talk about this. We can list all of the harmful effects of the stuff that the government tell you not to take, but let's look at some of the stuff that you do and where things go wrong. Because working at the front line, and I did spend a period of that working in care of the elderly wards, folks, and I can tell you this for certain, without fear of contradiction, based on what I saw with my own eyes, folks, with my own eyes. So the older you get, the more vulnerable you become and the weaker your immune system becomes. A high degree, a high portion of people in the 80 plus category would come into hospital because they just had a booster. They just had something to a flu vaccine or a flu vaccine that they have. They get the flu and they never leave because the the vaccine was stronger than their body was able to take. This happens, folks. People don't talk about it, but it happens. I've seen it with my own eyes. That there's a certain point where your immune system is just not strong enough to even take a reduced strain of a vaccine. And that's the facts. That's the facts. And no one talks about these stats because what? They're 80 plus. They died of old age. Died of old age, folks. Facts. Let's look at other things that happen. So, you go up and have your blood pressure tested at the GP. Now, that's a stressful thing. So, you're probably stressed going into the GP. You're probably stressed while you're having your blood pressure taken, and it's probably higher than average. And based on that single reading, the doctor says, "Oh, well, I think we need to up your medication or put you on medication to reduce your blood pressure." Then you go home, you take your blood pressure tablets, suddenly you're all chilled, you're just minding your own business. And one day you get up suddenly and you collapse. And you collapse because you've taken drugs to suppress the circulation of blood in your body, because that's how they reduce your blood pressure, folks. So the cure to one problem can cause another. A lot of people would come in, collapse. They just suddenly collapse because their blood pressure is being controlled. And these are the things that you need to be aware of, the things that they don't tell you. Here's another one. People that are elderly, they go in with pain, they get joint pain. They go in, they get given painkillers. Now, there's a certain group of painkillers called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And the things you may have heard of are things like ibuprofen and diclofenac. And both of these, if you do not eat before you take them, then there's a possibility that you're going to give yourself a stomach ulcer. And a lot of elderly give themselves this, which means they start bleeding from within. Now, the bleed from within causes a series of complications within an elderly body, which can quite often ultimately lead to death, folks. This happens. This happens. No one speaks up about this. You're not allowed to speak up about this. Fortunately, I've been out of the health service long enough that I can talk about this openly and not really give a shit what anybody thinks, because I've seen this with my own eyes. And this is just the reality of taking certain drugs. Now, if you get a British National Formulary, if you're based in the UK, that is the book that doctors use that has every single side effect for every drug. And if it doesn't terrify you to read that, then it probably never will. Let's talk about another thing. I think this is really important. So many people, when they overdose, they decide to end their life. When they're doing their suicide play, they decide to take a drug overdose. I want to tell everybody and make this very, very public. The worst possible drug and the most commonly used drug for overdoses is paracetamol. It is the worst, folks, because it takes days to kill you. It slowly rots your liver. And I have, to this day, with the people that have been given a couple of days after and all the family come in, every single one of them has changed their mind. So often a drug overdose is a call for help. And the drugs that people take to end it all are absolutely terrifying. The symptoms should be terrifying for you. To have your liver slowly rot, to know that there's nothing anyone can do about it, and to know that it's going to be a couple of days where you don't know if you're going to live or die. And what frequently happens is their families come in, their friends come in, they all tell them they love them. They all, oh, I didn't know, well, why did you try and kill yourself? We all love you. People start being honest. And here's a UK thing, folks. Suppressed emotions and suppressed thoughts and feelings are quite often the baseline. They are the reason why a lot of people have breakdowns. People don't talk properly. People aren't honest with each other. Stuff that this can be held in, and you don't find this out until somebody tries to kill themselves before everybody says, "Oh, I love you. I don't know. Why did you do this? Oh, I really love you." People don't say that. It comes too late. Drugs are thrown into the mix, folks. So there's all sorts of reasons why we need to be aware of drugs, folks, and not just the illegal ones. In fact, some of the illegal ones, which should be legal in my measured world, certainly when we look, we're now seeing things like medical marijuana and its place, especially in pain killing. And there's a lot misunderstood about drugs. They all get labeled. People talk about drugs, but people only mean the stuff that the government tell you not to take. There's a lot that you are legally allowed to take that are prescribed by doctors that are equally terrifying, my Jedi friends. And these are things that you need to be aware of. That the symptoms, the side effects of almost every drug have areas of your life that you need to be really, really careful about. Especially things like steroids. People are giving it to because they can't breathe properly, and before they know it, they're being propped up on steroids. And before they know, they've got a moon-shaped face and they're diabetic. These are just a couple of the symptoms, folks. There's normally stuff to manage. And what we used to see frequently in people that were elderly, they'd come in, they're on about 50 pills a day because one pill causes another problem that another one counteracts, and that causes another problem. Then another one has to counteract it. And no wonder the pharmaceutical industry are laughing all the way to the bank, my Jedi friends. All the way to the bank. And that's the health system. So, was I a health expert or was I a government sponsored drug dealer? Well, I'd be very interested to get your angle on this, folks, because I can tell you that is pretty much the reason that I got out of nursing. I let my registration expire and I vowed to myself that this was not something that I ever wanted to go back into because I'm out of alignment. I'm out of alignment. As long as I have to hand out drugs, I am out of alignment because it doesn't feel right, folks. So there you go. Slightly controversial, but these are things that you need to be aware of. And here's another really practical tip. And it amazes me how normally sensible people have like a penny drop moment. So a lot of you will be looking after your elderly parents at home. And one of my friends said, our mum's getting up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, falling over. It's a nightmare, all of the kids. And I asked a very simple question. It's like, what time is her final drink at night? And they gave her a cup of tea just before she went to bed. I'm like, look, guys, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out why she's getting up in the middle of the night. What you should be doing, if you want to stop that, is to make the final drink significantly earlier and make sure she goes to the toilet before she goes to bed. And I've been amazed that people I'd so much try respect for, this is like oh my God, that's incredible. It's like I've just changed their world. And yet to a nurse, that's one of the most obvious things ever, folks. So start thinking practically about certain things, what causes the issues that you're facing, and start questioning everything, folks. Question everything. Because the longer you're taking any drug, the more likely it is you're going to have some mad side effect. And this isn't a case of stop taking them or contradict your doctor's advice, but do know that your doctor only has 15 minutes and they're doing the best that they can. So this isn't even to slag off doctors. They're doing the best they can, folks. And some are better than others. And a lot of doctors don't like me because I ask all the wrong questions to reveal whether they actually know what they're talking about or not. And I can tell you for certain there are a significant amount of GPs that have no idea what they're talking about and will blag it for you, folks. So question everything. Question everything, my Jedi friends. And most importantly of all, take responsibility for your own health and well-being and your own state of mind. And look into the side effects of the drugs that you are taking or that you are prescribed and know what you should be looking out for. So there you go, my Jedi friends, a slightly different one today. We've had a pharmacy-based little video, but I'd be very interested to get your thoughts on this subject because I find it fascinating. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, drugs are a part of our culture. And frankly, the ones that are legal are the ones that I find the most terrifying. So there you go, folks. There is the insight from somebody that's worked on the front line and handed out more drugs than I care to admit to. But I was a government-sponsored drug dealer in my nursing role in the three continents that I worked on. So there you go, folks. It was out of my hands. Out of my hands. The drugs were into my hands, then they were out of my hands. But who to give them to and when to give them, that was out of my hands as well. So was I part of the care profession or was I a government-sponsored drug dealer? Well, I shall let you to speculate on that in the debate, folks. But either way, be aware of what you're taking, be aware of what your loved ones are taking, start asking questions, folks, and start questioning everything because every cause has an effect and every solution has an effect, which could have another problem at the end of it. So welcome to the wonderful world of pharmaceuticals. And just because the government says it's legal, then that doesn't mean you should be taking it, my Jedi friends. So there you go. That's my little tuppence worth, my little reflection on drugs pharmaceutical industry, legal and illegal, and side effects that you should be aware of. And either way, you will look into this and take responsibility for your own health and well-being, my Jedi friends. And if you're still watching now and you find this content intriguing, then please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because you'll get more little sound bites, little debates, little nuggets like this. And speaking of which, there's another one there. So go out, question everything, my Jedi friends, and be responsible. Be your own GP. Be responsible for your own health and take control. Take control of how you feel.